Here at the Giver Marketing Network, we don't leave you drifting out in space. We connect you to a coach who will help you build and grow your marketing business. Our process acts as a guide on how to connect with other businesses, maintain good relations, and establish a presence on the Giver Marketing Network. Each member within this collaborative group will have the opportunity to leverage your talent and influence, a true network effect. If you are looking to collaborate on more projects, welcome to the Giver Marketing Network, the most trusted and highest rated collective of specialists on the planet. Here we have a group of like-minded professionals who focus on making valuable introductions and helping each other grow by teaming up. Imagine Upwork meets a network and a coach. The talent collectively includes services like visibility and SEO, creating logos, designing websites, managing social media, outreach messaging, visual storytelling, and much more. Think of what you could do with laser-focused allies strengthening your business while offering your talent to the entire network. Click near this video for more information.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Giver Marketing Network presentation broadcast and the Kingdom Warriors University broadcast as well. We're going to be talking about AI tips for branding. We have a bunch of guests in the room who they're actually part of the family. They're part of the Giver Marketing Network. Many of them are involved in Kingdom Warriors as well on some level. And so we're glad to be here and talk about AI tips for branding. So we're excited to talk about branding and how it relates to artificial intelligence. And we're going to take your business, your organization to another level using the tools at hand, the modern tools we have available to us. We're going to take the mystery out of them to some degree today, and we're going to have some fun discussing kind of the broad concept of artificial intelligence and branding for your organization. Okay, so first thing we want to do today is everybody say hi. Everybody say hi to the audience. Awesome. We got Christine, and we got two Joels in the room. We got Megan Nathan. We got Oz in the room. We got so many people. I think we have others that are joining us as well. I see Dustin in the waiting room as well. There's a few others. We're not going to talk about one particular software or product today. We're going to be talking about kind of the general principles of how we can play and have fun doing that. So that'll be good. Hey, with that, let's go into the definition, a running definition of branding that we're going to be using today. Okay, so when we talk about marketing, we're usually thinking about branding, visibility, promotion, nurturing, these kind of words and definitions. So we're going to have some fun with branding today. So what does Michelle Van Otten say about branding? Christine, I know that there's been you and others who have kind of mentioned certain influencers that have helped us define branding. Can you read this definition of branding for us today?
Absolutely. Your brand represents the sum total of experiences found in the marketplace that equate to how you have carved your reputation.
Awesome. So we are looking at experiences that we can give our audience so that when we're not in the room, they're talking about us and mentioning certain things, certain experiences, certain visuals, certain auditory, certain experiences that they've had. Now, this goes for whether you have a brick and mortar business or whether you have an online business. So keep that in mind as we get into some of the fun tools that we can use in our modern era. All right, so if marketing is communication, like pre-decision, pre-funding, pre-sales communication, then your brand is how people feel when experiencing your organization, okay? So we want to keep that in mind. This is a holistic conversation. This is not just compartmentalized to maybe a logo or a certain set of language or something, a mantra of some kind. This has to do with a holistic picture of your organization. Okay. Now you personally have a brand too. So it's how people experience you. They might think of you as a a person that brings clarity, or a very creative person, or someone who's super consistent. So you want to think about that as kind of part of your brand, kind of your brand personality, if you will. Okay. Hey, this helps us. Remember 7th grade class, the 5 senses? And some would say there's 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 of them, but these are the 5 we all agree on, okay? So sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. We're going to probably talk about at least 2 of these. We might even bring in a third one if we get nerdy about it, so that'll be fun. And then let's not forget the power of video and how artificial intelligence is helping us literally create moving pictures that help us remember what it is we're wanting to remember and communicate to our audience in a way that's very important. Okay, so with that, I just wanted to bring up a couple of visuals to get our conversation started. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Christine, and we're going to have a roundtable discussion about artificial intelligence and how it relates to your brand. Let's go.
Awesome. So excited about this. Branding is one of those topics that just kind of touch everything, right? Every part of your business is touched by branding. So it's really hard sometimes when we start thinking about what is the definition. And we did a great overview there, but I think our team members might have an idea of what they think of when they think of brand. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Everybody jump in, go for it.
When we looked at branding for Legacy, it was about Legacy is my company. Sorry, I should clarify that. When we looked at branding, it was about how do we want people to talk about us. And so when we built our website, that was what we were like, okay, this is what we want. And so we chose our colors, we chose our content, we chose everything involved with how we want people to talk about us. And so that's what we did.
Reputation, right? Just like the definition was talking about. Absolutely. Anybody else? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think branding?
For me, the company name was important. So, when people speak the company name, we want them to get an impression of what they can expect when they engage with us, right? So my company is Coax Consulting, and we actually adapted the verb and use it as a noun. So the art of gentle persuasion becomes our brand around marketing.
Excellent example of the use of a name, right? And what that symbolizes, what that means. Awesome. Anybody else?
For me, it's about first impressions last. That once they see your branding, hear your name, they know exactly what it's about. For my company, the company name is called Supreme IntelliSoft. So it's about intelligent software that's the best.
Once again, naming.
Nice.
Absolutely. Oz, what are you thinking of?
When I think of branding, I think of you. I just shut my mouth and I let you do all of it because I just mess it up.
You're the resident artist. I'm sure you're thinking art, right? And so, we don't have everybody in the room yet, Timothy. I think we need to bring everybody in. Dustin, you ready? Whoop, as we
Ready or
bring him in.
ready or not.
Ready or not, here I am.
Dustin.
That's right.
All right, throw in some thoughts around branding, Dustin, if you can, and then Christine, we can continue the conversation. That'd be great.
So before getting into software, I started my career as a graphic designer, very heavily in the branding space. And so I've done a lot of branding for a lot of different companies. And I think my thoughts on branding is essentially how your story is told. And like you've already covered, it encompasses many different senses. It's not just the visual, which is what I typically focused on. It's also the language, the words that you use to describe your brand, the words that other people use to describe your brand or your business or your services. It's the choice of fonts, the choice of emotions that you choose to invoke. And so it's a very, very deep and intertwined essence. It is essentially the entirety of your business or brand is how you tell that story. And it's a very, very important piece of the building a business puzzle.
Absolutely. I love that. The story side of it, right? And really today we're focusing on how to use AI with your branding, right? So now we've kind of got some ideas, right? Like, hey, all these different ideas. And as new business owners, when we talk to new business owners, I work with a lot of new business owners, and I know there's certain struggles that they have with their business. They don't even know where to start, right? And how in the world can we use AI to give them a hand with whether they're starting out or whether they're further into their business, right? And how can they keep that brand strong? And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about what we're using right now. Timothy had mentioned tools. Do we have some favorite tools that we're using for our branding?
Yeah, I think one of the basic tools that you can use is software that helps get your visuals dialed in as you're kind of telling that story or writing your copy. Even to me, if you can match the visuals with the language, now you got something you can start molding. It's like the clay that you can start molding. And one of the things that I recommend clients do is practice sharing their origin story. It doesn't have to be the full, like, novel. You don't need all that. You just need to share, okay, where did I come from? When was that aha moment? How am I helping my audience right now solve some kind of problem or pain point? And then the visuals of what that could look like, and the language and how that kind of produces. I don't know. I think I don't even think in terms of logo in the beginning. In the beginning, you could literally have your name in black and white just to get going. Mm-hmm. But if you start playing with imagery and language, but pretty soon your name actually pops out of that image and language, or the logo starts forming in your head based on the imagery or the language. And you can do it different ways, but I do like using tools or conversations or feedback from friends around my origin story. I think that's a really important piece.
I'm going to run with two ideas off of what you just said, Timothy. And the first one made me think about your name, right? If you haven't already purchased the website of your name, and I know we've had a conversation about that too, right? And you may not be able to find it available, but you might be able to find something with your middle initial in it or something with your middle name in it, right? So buy your name. It's yours.
I don't think I'm going to
add one more step. I would say buy the the typo version of your name as well. How do people misspell it? Get that version too. That's a good idea.
Come on.
It's like getting the .com, .net, and the .org versions, right? This way they all redirect back to you no matter what. There you go. Claim your brand. And you can, like we talked about, personal branding versus company branding. And if you're a small business owner, a lot of times those are mixed, right? They're one and the same a lot of times. So especially if you're providing services and, like, for example, coaching, right? I always say I am the DFW networking diva. That is my brand, and that is who I am, all together wrapped in one, right? So you really need to be clear. Are you branding a separate company name that you chose carefully, this company name, or what is it, a reflection of you? Is it a reflection of your mission, your goals? What are you doing with that? So that all ties into your branding.
Let's talk about that for a second, Christine. We can use tools to obviously help us with our name choice, but we need to know beforehand whether or not we're going to be playing off of our personal brand long term, or if we're going to be changing our focus into where this company. I like to think of company brands as like children, like babies that we have. We get to name them, we get to nurture them, we get to raise them, and at some point they end up taking over the responsibilities of the family. And so the question is, how quickly do you want that to happen? If you want that to happen, some people are like, I just want to roll with my personal brand. I happen to have a little company over here on the side, and I do some work with my parent or my corporate brand, but my personal brand is really the thing. I want to be a public speaker. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to start, especially a lot of coaches and consultants will keep their personal brand as a very front and center. There's others that are like, look, personal brand's important for the first year or two, but as soon as possible, we're going to start bringing the corporate brand to the front and center. And I'm not going to lose my brand altogether, but it's going to be the footnote in the conversation. And when people look like when people say, "Hey, how do we look you up?" That's when you know what you're actually focused on. Are you going to look me up under my personal name? Are you going to look me up under, a company name? Like, how are you going to look me up online? And if you haven't taken the time to kind of figure out what's in first position, what'll happen is you'll end up confusing an audience. They won't know, like, okay, are we working with an individual here, or are we working with a team? Are we working with a software? Like, what do we do? What are we doing? Like, so that's, I think, a really important. I think tools like Chat GPT. I just want to call it GPT because there's nothing else really named that. So GPT could help you actually when you start developing your business plan, when you start getting your branding language kind of dialed in. Hey, does this make sense? What's the definition of this word? How many times have we seen people name a company and the word they chose doesn't make sense? Like,
or worse, it's like offensive in a different language.
Yeah, and you got to run this through either some people or some AI or both, or kind of get an idea of what, like, does this represent what I'm about pretty well, or like,
I might add, Timothy, that kind of what you're describing is personality of your company, the brand personality, and by the imagery and the language and all of those things that you choose gives that visitor a clue as to what they're going to encounter when they open the door. You wouldn't want to, walk into a nightclub that you thought was a quiet bar. Having that experience, and I know this is going to be part of our future conversation here, is creating the personality around the brand identifies the experience that people are going to have when they engage with you. Right. And so that's the matchup that the uninformed browser will take, right, as they come into contact with your content.
So it's not enough to just have your mom and your brother and your cousin say, "Oh, that's a great name, great idea." You need like the newbies, the fresh eyes to give you some feedback. I love that. I love that. Any other thoughts on this part of the conversation, kind of the naming and the origin language, like just the beginning stages?
I'm going to say make sure that you actually read what that website looks like all together, because sometimes when you take the spaces out, it may not read like you wanted it to. When we were naming a company yesterday for one of my clients, and I said, "Oh, let's not do that," because the way you could pronounce it, right? Did you add the S here? Or did they put it there? And all of a sudden it said something. You're like, "Oh, no." So make sure you jam it all together
Great
to see
point.
what it looks like.
Hey,
Great
Christine,
point.
I wanted to jump in here and talk about our earliest conversation around No More Starving Artists and what we were going to brand the name as, and we niched it down to Nomosa because it sounded like a mimosa. But I was on with actually a branding expert yesterday, just a one-to-one, and he looked at the name, and he's from Brooklyn, and he said, not only you're running an artist organization, but think about, the Museum of Modern Art, okay, MoMA, NoMo, and it was like it never hit me that we're an art organization, and Museum of Modern Art, our name is very similar to what theirs is. And we never even looked at that. So yeah, branding is really important. What did Joel say? What's the personality behind your brand? There it is.
It fits.
And it was accidental, but it's good. But you know what? I'm sure Christine knew it anyway.
We'll go for accidental wins any day.
She has spidey senses. Watch out for Christine. She's got it. She just, ideation comes. She throws 2 or 3 ideas out there. All of a sudden one hits and it's golden. So love that.
And that's a good comment also about Oz, what you mentioned about the idea of shortening it, right? Sometimes we have something and it's so long, right? So sometimes we'll shorten things down so that it's a little bit less of a mouthful. And so imagine, just think about it. What are you going to use for your email? Such and such at, right? So if you have a really long name, it's going to take them quite a while to work their way all the way through to type your email out. Don't do that to people. Be kind and gentle.
Some people use acronyms for their business name because they have 2 or 3 words in their name. And I was working with one client recently where the acronym was going to be ASS. And I'm like, if you ever want, I'm just telling you, like, if you ever want, like, I think actually he brought it up. He's like, if I ever want to use the acronym in any way, shape, or form, this is not going to be okay. So I got to really think through this long term. And it's little things like this that people like Christine and others on this, presentation today can help you with. And AI can actually answer some of these questions initially before you get into the deeper conversations with kind of your feedback loop or your human feedback, where people know you, they like you, they trust you, they understand a little bit about you, and then you can run those. It's fun to do preliminary research through AI on these type of topics, and even running like some of the documents you have already written out, like, this is what I want to do to change the world and blah 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 blah. Just kind of your emoting on paper, like, or typing it out. You can run that through AI and say, give me an origin story about this. Give me some possible names for a company that does this. Give me, like, I mean, you guys tell me, like, what have you guys done? I mean, tell us, like, share with the audience, what have you done in this regard to kind of get your brand going from here to woo, 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 woo. Let's really dial this in, because this is one of the, like, to Christine's point, this is one of the most difficult parts of being either a new entrepreneur or an entrepreneur with too many ideas and you're trying to get it down to one, or an entrepreneur that's been around for a while, they just need to freshen things up. We all need like tools and people in our lives to kind of help us stay focused. So can you give some examples, lady and gentlemen, of what we can do?
Yeah, I'll jump in here because I've done this a number of times as an exercise, and GPT-4 is exceptionally good at this because it is a highly creative model. And so one thing that you can do is, I mean, you pretty much said it, Tim, is give it your, what I do is I start with, here's how I would describe my product, or here's how I would describe my brand. Here's the impression that I want to give people. It's kind of this and it's kind of that. And I want people to feel excited about it. I want people to feel like they can trust us. Give it some of those descriptive words that you want people to, the impression you want to give, or the feeling you want to evoke. And then just say, can you come up with some interesting brand names for this company or this product? And it will give you some really great ideas. And like I said, GPT-4 in particular is really good at this task because it's a highly creative model. You wouldn't want to use something like a Claude for that task because it's not quite as good at coming up with creative ideas outside the box. I haven't tried Bard or Palm or Llama from Meta for these kinds of tasks, but I have found GPT-4 to be exceptionally good.
Good tip. Thank you for that. Who else has some concepts or riffs around that part of the branding conversation? We can get a little deeper here in a minute.
I know. Oh, go ahead, Joel, please.
I was just saying, I was just thinking out loud that I think it's good to physically write it out about 8 or 10 times in your own words in various variations, so that you know what the language is that you're trying to put out. And while the AI tools are important and they're great for formatting ideas or formulating text and putting concepts into words, there's still that, how are you going to do your elevator pitch? How are you going to convey your brand identity? How are you going to talk about you, or your company, right? So one of the big tools or processes that I generally go through is to actually spend the time with a pen and a piece of paper, because when you write, it slows your mind down roughly 10-1 versus typing and reading. So it actually forces you to cognitively process what it is you're going to talk about. And one of the masters of this is Tim Salmonson, who's joined us in creating brand story. So yeah, I think that's an important part of the ideation. Everyone's muted. In broadcasting, we call that dead air.
Tim, what are your thoughts around the story creation aspect of this before we move on? We're all trying, and our mute buttons are going wild. All right. Well, hey, come back to us, Tim, a little bit later. Okay, so we got this the naming, the origin story. We got some language starting to develop here. Christine, how do you take some of your clients through this process of really leveraging some of the tools? I mean, don't forget, like, just Adobe alone, just kind of or Canva or some of these tools that just kind of get your brain going into the right side. What is it? The right side of the brain, where you start getting a little bit more creative and outside the box. Let's discuss some of the basic tools, and then how AI is kind of layering on top of that and just creating this special sauce for our recipe of developing a brand.
Timothy, I'm going to be completely transparent. I have 2 dogs barking at the moment because somebody's running their lawnmower next to us. So
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm trying really hard to keep myself muted, but I'm just going to be transparent because this is what happens in live shows.
Going live. Okay. Who has some experience with Canva or some of the Adobe products or other products that will help get the wild and crazy visuals?
They're bringing in the AI into so many of the tools now, right? Have you noticed that Canva's got AI in it now? WordPress has AI in it. A lot of them have AI.
Yeah, some of them tend to use and leverage AI in its truest sense, and then it seems like others are just slapping those letters on their tools. But either way, if they're going that direction, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it's helpful. But I mean, shoot, just going through Canva and grabbing some images and having some fun there, getting yourself going, and then bring it over to some of the big boy and girl tools that'll really start taking you outside of the box. I mean, if you want to talk outside the box, talk to Oz. Like this guy will take you from taking images that you were hoping might be semi-interesting, and he'll just blow your mind with what you can do with the tools that are available. So anybody else have any experiences around just basic tools that kind of get you going?
Yeah, let me jump in on that one. My first experience generating any type of AI art was actually in Adobe Express beta. This is probably about 6 months ago. This is before I started playing in Stable Diffusion and Midjourney and, the big boys, okay? The ones where you could generate literally perfect human beings or anything you want. And it's more of, you can generate some really good stuff, and there's pluses there. And it is very much a combination of almost like, some of the AI generators and Canva in Adobe Express, but it tends to be a watered down version and very complicated in many ways. And people I've sent there came back to me and said, this is just too much. There's too much there. So sometimes keeping things simple is important, because sometimes if you offer too much, people look at it and their eyes cross and they leave and never come back. And again, the AI generation was nowhere near as good as Stable Diffusion, Leonardo, or Midjourney. So it's kind of a 50-50 thing.
So which one produces more complex? Can you explain that?
I would say probably Midjourney is at the top of the game, where it's very thoughtful. You have to really get good at putting in your prompts, changing a word here and a word there, just like ChatGPT, where if you change one thing, it gives you a different answer. Generating images is the same way. You could put in, an image of, show me a flower on a mountain, with a moon behind it. And, it'll give you something completely different than what you thought you were going to get, and better. Okay. So it's, and I say this to everybody, understanding that when you're talking to AI, whether it's you know, a large language model or Midjourney or Stable Diffusion, you're really dealing with a child, and you have to train it just like you would train your children, and it gets better and better and better as you train it. I like this, I don't like that. I want this, I don't want this. And it's brilliant. And I mean, I shake when I think about what's going to be available even a year from now.
Okay, so whether we're starting in like Google Images and just kind of getting our brains moving and trying to like the old kind of the legacy way of doing this, or Canva, we can start dabbling, taking our kind of our ideas and brainstorming, or our storyboard, if you will, and start plugging them in to these tools. Okay, I hear you. Anything else around the imagery?
Having started again as a graphic designer, I think I have a fair amount of experience with these tools. I actually interviewed Melanie, the founder of Canva, when Canva was first started. She did an interview for my blog at the time, and I loved their vision for the product, and I love what they've done. So they've created a lot of really helpful tools that can help in this branding process. They've got color palette generators. They've got great articles on how to pick the right fonts. They've got some really great resources in that vein. And Adobe too. Adobe has a great color palette generator. I don't think they have any articles that I've seen on picking the right fonts or logo picking, but Canva has a plethora of resources in that vein. But one thing that I'll say is, you know, the thing about these tools is they're really great in isolation. And by isolation, I mean they have a color palette generator, and then they have a logo generator, and then they have a typography guide, and they're all kind of separate tools. And this is great if you like working in isolation and you're kind of good at tying the concepts together yourself. Well, one thing that I think AI is really upping the game for is, because a conversational AI has the ability to tie concepts together and to understand the context of a narrative, the magic of being able to start with, here's my brand story. Help me come up with some ideas for a brand name. Okay, now help me think through, what are some colors that I could have attached to this brand? You're leveraging the AI's almost infinite knowledge on tying these concepts together progressively. And instead of having to jump into different silos and come up with something fresh every time, you're leveraging the technology to tie these concepts together in real time. So many people haven't realized this yet, but ChatGPT or any AI is actually really good at coming up with color palettes. It may not visually display them to you. It would be really nice if there was a tool out there that could do this. I'm going to write that down in my notebook. But if, you know, say, because I've done this several times, I've asked AI, here's my brand, here's the feeling we're going for, here's the emotion, here's the personality. Can you come up with a color palette that would cohesively work with this brand? And it gave me, you know, 6 hex codes to work out, and then I had to go into another app and like make sure that they looked good. But
not only that, Dustin, but you can ask it why, or what brought. How come we have so many colors that are associated with, you know, brown tones, or why are we doing this and not this? Can we lighten the mood? Can we? And then you just have a conversation as you would with a trusted brainstorming assistant with infinite knowledge. And I love how you said that, kind of that infinite knowledge available now. Application of knowledge, that's still the business of humans, but knowledge itself has now become the business of AI. And you can write that down, ladies and gentlemen. We're in a different era. This is not business as usual. Like, use that. Now, we all got this application and wisdom dynamic. Like, we're not going to lose that anytime soon. But when it comes to just straight up data or knowledge, this is where people are freaking out. Like, oh, I need to come up with my own things every time. It's got to be original. It's got to be this. Okay, yeah, get it going. Make it original. and then use all the tools at hand. Not using some of these tools would be a lot like not using a computer because you want to use the typewriter. It doesn't make sense in our modern era not to at least try. Meganathan, can you share a little bit of your experience in playing with these tools very seriously over the last it's been a while now. So tell us a little bit about your experience with this.
Yeah, thanks, Timothy. And just to leverage on what you said, is that understand that these AI tools are experts that are at your side. So you looking at systems that know exactly what is needed for each of these different parts of the business. So I mentioned to Christine the other day that there's a great resource called topai.tools, and they list about 5,000 AI tools that you could use. I put in the word branding there, and 25 came up. And what really blew me was one particular one that spoke about build your brand.ai. And they essentially go through the process of creating your brand identity. Like you had mentioned, the colors, the feelings, the tone. And so here you must understand that these AI bots are friends to you, assistants to you. So you need to be have a good understanding of what you need out of them so that you can leverage those tools to the best that you need.
Do you think a lot of entrepreneurs stop before they even start? In other words, they get frozen with I don't even know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And I'm curious of your experience in working with clients around the AI space, around these technology pieces, your marketing technology pieces that you bring into the game. If they're maybe overwhelmed, what does that feel like? What does that feel like to them? Let's speak to that.
So I think what's happened is that the term AI has been something that we've placed very high or above what humans can understand. So people almost feel they have this impression that it's outside of what I can understand. And what we've tried to do is to simplify AI, simplify the usage of AI, bring it closer to you. So we basically help them understand that AI is just a tool. One, it's a tool to help you be better. Two, it's a knowledge worker. It's your expert system that you have internally.
Write that down, ladies and gentlemen. Knowledge worker. Very, very succinct. Love that.
So that what we do then is to simplify the usage, is to make bridging that gap, because media has done that. We keep thinking about AI as being something out there, but it's not. It's what any average person can use. There's a great other tool that I found called Poe AI. And I think Dustin will know that, is that it's a tool that gives you access to all these GPT systems that are out there. And what's great is that it can help people do work like ours in terms of simplifying the request you need. And this tool will then create the complex prompts that you need to be able to put it into Midjourney or other tools. So the idea is that we would love to have to tell people about these tools because they're out there. We need to bridge the gap.
These tools, I'm hearing you, Meganathan, say these tools can help you not only get started, but in the hands of masters like Oz, who have been around for decades doing some of their masterful work, it becomes exponentially more interesting at that point. So not only can it help you get started, but it can help you hand your starting work over to masters, and then they begin developing something quite unique or special that you can be super proud of. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate your kind of insights. And how do you spell the last tool that you mentioned?
It's called Poe, Poe.ai.
Poe. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you're writing some of these down. We have some other favorites in-house that we use quite a bit. Magi is one of them. There's some other ones too. I like using Claude, sometimes within Magi, sometimes without, just depending on the situation. Love these tools. We're trying to mention a few of these for you, ladies and gentlemen, so you can go play with them. A lot of them don't cost too much to get started. They're either no or low cost. So just there's really no excuse except for emotional fear to try to figure.
And you're not going to break it, right? This is not Ralph broke the internet. You're safe. It's okay to use it and go in, break it a little bit, and have some fun with it. It's okay. Promise.
Start with personal questions if you want, like, hey, if I need to get more exercise and I enjoy this or that or another thing, how will that affect my health? Like, just ask it random questions and see if you even like the way that it interacts with you, and then go from there. Jack, we haven't heard much from you yet. I want to make sure we give you some opportunities. Your microphone doing pretty good for you today? Let's make sure that I will unmute Jack.
Fine.
Come on, Jack.
I'm just being quiet here.
All right. Just listening.
Absorbing
Okay.
the AI because it's interesting. When I developed my logo story is my first logo was my name, Jack Rand, in Times Roman. That was my brand. And then as it evolved, I developed my personal results system, which is basically a time management approach that aligns your vision, your purpose, your goals, your activities, so they're all in alignment. And then as I wrote as I did the process, what I realized, my clients might want to use this. So I began to write about it, how to use it. And all of a sudden the download happened and I got my cycle out of it. There's 7 steps in the cycle. And so it turned out to be this was way before AI, it's 15 years ago. It was a circle with a line across the top. That's as graphic as I got to try and indicate it was a cycle, an ongoing cycle. Over time, I developed it into, I found a way to do it in Publisher. It took me, God, forever, right, to make a swoosh out of it. And you can see that now. And the swoosh developed into my logo when I worked with a graphic artist. I said, it's like a Zen brushstroke. Like, oh, so that's how my logo evolved over time. And so now when I'm thinking about AI, one of the things I picked up so far, listening to Dustin, is about asking smaller questions about the logo or about your branding. So I was thinking, geez, you had a process to ask AI, all those questions in it that would lead you through the process. I think that would be, ultimately saleable, both from a selling point of view, which is what I do, and also from a marketing point of view.
Sure. Yeah, good comments. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate you kind of jumping in, just kind of from that sales and marketing, sales meets marketing kind of perspective. Really appreciate that. It's interesting that we can go back in time and say, man, I wish I would have had this tool or that tool or this tool. Well, we're telling you right now, start using them now. Like, this is fun. All right. So branding it is your logo, but it is much more than that. It's what people remember. It's what people experience. It's all of this. And as we land the plane today, are there any, let's go with tools. Let's just start rocking the tools. Like, what other tools are we using, whether it's AI heavy or they're just getting into AI? Christine, you just mentioned Canva's getting into the game a little bit here. So that's kind of fun. Who else has some tips either around AI or the tools themselves? Go ahead.
I have one, Tim, and this is something that everybody who uses these tools should understand. Google, understand when you work on anything, you have to think about who is this affecting and what is the competition of this company that I'm using not going to like. So if you use ChatGPT or Claude or any AI large language model generator and don't change any of the words and put it out on the internet, Google will not recognize it at all because they have Bard. They want you to use Bard. So anything that you use on the internet, you have to change at least 15% with your own words, or it will not be seen by anybody. Google will literally blacklist.
When you say seen on the internet, you mean when you publish it somewhere publicly,
anywhere,
that needs to be edited with kind of a human touch.
Yes.
So that you're not only limited by kind of the filters that are out there. I'm just summarizing what you're saying, but also if people start catching on that you're doing that and that's a primary part of your content where you're not editing it at all, you're just having these tools kind of think for you, that can actually, speaking of branding, I mean, that can detract from your brand just a little bit over time. And then
A
just
lot.
kind of starts eroding your brand. Like, do they even bring anything original to the game? Like, I mean, come on, let's go. Like, at least help us apply this or do something with it,
Yeah, and you
right?
can almost tell because there seems like almost like a rhythm to it when it's just AI generated.
Mhm.
Unless you're really, really creative with voices. And Christine had a question earlier um, um, about personas, and I'd love Dustin to just give us a minute about personas in how your AI is searching information for you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is great about AI again is you can tell it how to behave. Not just you can't it's not limited to just like give me this. You can say give me this in this way. And when you're creating content for a brand or for yourself, I think the most important part of making your life easier is first training it on your voice, your brand voice, your writing style, your language choices. And I've written articles, and actually today I'm doing an online summit on this very topic of creating personas for AI to train the AI to write like you. But it's an essential piece of the puzzle. And AI is actually really good. If you're good at describing your writing voice or your brand voice, then an AI can emulate it in very convincing ways. Now, there still might be a little bit of editing that you want to do here and there because it won't get it exactly right because obviously it's not you. But it is very good if you can take the time to craft a description for the AI. And there are nuances into how to do this, and I don't think we have time to go into that. But you want to be very direct and very clear on how you want the AI to write. And the AI
Just the exercise of doing that, just the exercise, like Christine's probably like, yes, yes, yes. Just, and Joel, saying like all of us are kind of saying the same, like just the exercise of working with an assistant in this way, that alone gets our brain going in a more succinct and clear. We talk about clarity, we talk about being succinct. I love the fact that it can help me remove repetitive language or concepts that aren't necessary. Like, just because I think it's interesting doesn't mean my audience is going to think it's interesting if it's extremely repetitive. Um, I'm hearing some things right now about people producing short films using AI. We don't even have time to go into all that, but those short films could be a huge branding piece. Like, here's a story of how our company was born, and you could do all sorts of stuff here in the next couple of years around video based, not just imagery, but video based experiences for your audience to say, oh, so that's how that happened. Like, you don't need to go to a studio and have 4K cameras everywhere. I mean, you might want to have a little bit of that from in your back pocket, but you can take that you've shot with Tim Solmonson or with others, and you can take that and start bringing that into literally like a mini movie or something. And it might only be 4 or 5 minutes, but it's a movie, man. Like, it's got a plot and it's got everything in it. So get ready, buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, even as we kind of wrap up this conversation that sets the tone for the next few weeks. Christine, I know we got to wrap this up today. We're kind of coming against the clock, but what are we going to be talking about next week? And don't forget to mention Wednesday as well. So
That's true. All sorts of fun things coming up. Now, today we're focusing on branding and how to bring AI into play and help you with that process. But the blueprint has so much more. So we're actually going to follow the blueprint that we like to use here with Giver Marketing, which we consider the basics of your marketing and what you have to have. So we started off with branding, and then next week we move into the world of visibility, right?
yeah, visibility, which is, it's kind of a general term. So think search engine optimization, think how people find you. It's not how you find people, it's how they find you. It's a little bit of inbound conversation. Inbound marketing can be discussed there at some point, but ultimately it's how people are actually finding you within a few seconds. Like, that's what we want to, and that could be in a physical space. It could be online. It could be, really, we like to cross the both sides of that conversation. So whether you have an office building or a space that you're working in, or you're online primarily like many of us are, then we need to have this conversation about how AI can help us with our visibility. We want to be seen, right?
Right. And a lot of that involves tools that we may not be familiar with. So I'm hoping we have some of our specialists in those areas coming and hanging out with us next week. So that's going to be pretty fun.
Come on,
And
let's
then
do it.
there's more, right? So we got that one, and there's more classes that we're going to do related to marketing and AI. So I hope you like the theme, because that's what we're running with for a little bit here, because we just think it's so it's on trend, it's relevant, it's what's happening now. So let's keep up to date on what's going on and how we can use these to help us in our businesses. And then tomorrow is Wednesday, which is networking for marketers. So do not be a lonelypreneur. Even if you're solo, even if you have a team, an agency, sometimes it's lonely at the top, right? You need other people you can talk to as peers. So come hang out with us. We meet on Wednesdays. It's 10 o'clock Central. However, those other time zones, you got to do the math.
Right.
So come hang out with us 8 a.m. on the Pacific Coast and 11 on East Coast. So if you want to find us, you want to make sure you go to givermarketing.com/networking. And you can register once and come hang out with us. Totally free. We just want you guys to come hang out with us and be part of the tribe.
Bring a friend. Let's have a party tomorrow. We look forward to that. Thank you, Christine, for hosting that, and let's have some fun. See you soon, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you. Have a great week.